Ladies and gentlemen, how you all doing? This is Colleville coming to you with some more SD44. Today's game was sent in to me, excuse me, by one of these two players here. The map itself is Colleville. Let's get straight to the players immediately. So spawning up in this blue area right here, it's going to be the 101st Airborne under the command of the Reverend. Meanwhile, his opponent is spawning up in the north side of the map, as we can see right now, playing as a 17th SS-Panzergrendier. It will be Prince Ali. Like I said already, the map itself is Colleville, and my guess is we're going to see a lot of fighting around this kind of benchmark territory right over here in the center part of the map, obviously. Which is kind of unfortunate for the American player, because he is super easy access to this town in the kind of center-south part of the map. However, there are plenty of hedgerows to kind of frustrate either player as you move further and further north, whether you're hunkering down, setting up in areas like here, or even if you use this copse of trees as a nice little kind of defensive position to guard one of your flanks. It's always kind of nice. Meanwhile, over here on the eastern side of the map, at least as we're looking right now, we will see a couple of orchards that can kind of break things up a little bit, as well as more hedgerows spotted around. But one thing that's always worth noting is that while it looks like the American has a lot of advantage on the western side of the map, on the eastern side of the map, it doesn't look like anybody has really a whole lot of anything. Sure, if you hug up the eastern corner, eastern edge, you have some good sight lines looking down. But other than that, you have to first take one hedgerow, shift on through, take another one, and it's that way the entire way up on this map. But let's get down to what some of the players are bringing on in already. We do see Prince Ali has tons and tons of troops up here to the northern side, at least on one arterial, which is kind of good because he needs to come kind of scoot on forwards and take, my guess would be right this immediate area right about here, at the absolute minimum at least. Moving back further from this tree line right here, he's going to put himself in a very negative position if it doesn't advance super quickly. But you see right now he's got a couple of infantry squads, a couple of infantry leaders, a little bit of indirect fire, some recon, very standard opening. It's a very well-rounded kind of composition. On the German left, you are going to see more infantry, some more indirect fire, and a little bit in terms of a machine gun. The MG42 is going to be rather nasty. And this Opel Blitz right here is going to be shifting on forward with another artillery piece of some kind. Given that's the SS-Panzergrendier, my guess would be something like probably the IG-18. In regards to these 17th SS, very often you will see that they have some teeth in the early kind of stages of the game, but they really have to depend on a lot of artillery to really get where they want to go. Meanwhile, the Americans to the south have a fair number of troops still coming out, a couple of M22s giving them teeth early on as well. But a couple of machine guns, infantry, and the 101st, of course, is deadly aggressive in Phase A. I'm not going to have a ton of vehicles necessarily, and I'm just putting up all the locations right now you can see for all these troops. I see that, like I anticipated, not a lot of fighting in the initial town sector, but at the same time, going to be some good action in the more open fields over here to the west, at least both players seeking to kind of gain some early fields of fire. While over in the east, we see a little bit more minimal in terms of actual engagement, although we are going to see an M22, which means the Germans are going to be hard-pressed early on to fight that back. But the 101st, okay, like I said already, they are rather light in Phase A, and that their heaviness doesn't increase too much as you go further and further on, though you are going to see some small anti-tank guns coming on in, as well as more M10s and the like. That being said, okay, we're already seeing, infantry gun 18, and Afkra, no, the Strug is on the field. So the Strug is right here, and this guy's going to be a bit of trouble for the Americans, especially in the middle part of the map. Question is, what's he seeing right now? Well, he's putting fire already over into these airborne rifles and the engineers. His M2HB is actually set up in a fairly decent position, not so much actually in any kind of defensive location. But see, that field of fire that he's got is rather sexy. Over here on the western side, well, the M22 is coming under fire from, looks like perhaps the IG-18. Of course, he's putting fire right back into him, too. So the infantry support gun is not going to be able to engage incredibly effectively. You see that HE would be theoretically enough to cause damage in terms of armor, but it's going to be an uphill battle all the same. Over here in the western flank for the Germans, we are going to see the MG42 shifting on forwards, and this Panzergrendier kind of hunkering down in this tree line. And this M22, despite the fact that it's brought over here to the east, is not particularly aggressively placed. 5149, though, coming out already for the Americans. So a couple of tickets going in favor off to the U.S. And perhaps having recognized the threat that this M22 does pose. Where did that little bugger go? Oh, wow. Okay, I was going to say, I didn't think he went down. The M22 kind of shifting on forwards, and now we have an anti-tank gun coming in as well, though, so it's going to be kind of hard for the M22 to be aggressive. Remember, he only has a fair amount of armor to the front, and even then, he is a super, super light vehicle. M2HB, in the meantime, is putting fire down on top of the Germans in the center part of the map, and we're having more artillery support coming on in. I wouldn't be surprised to see something like a, well, another IG-18. I mean, early on, you can see there's a fair number of cars that will allow you to get that as the 17th SS. And I think this M22 is going to take the first real kill of the game. Well, he's pinned down the Panzergrendier. Is reeling super, super fast, and yep, there goes that lighter vehicle. On the German left, the Allied right, we're seeing they're kind of folding right now already. M22 coming in has taken out the MG42, and the airborne engineers and the airborne rifles are pinned somewhat, but at the same time, not as bad as their Panzergrenadier opponents. But the Germans are throwing in a fair number of infantry, so that way they can protect their kind of collapsing left flank. P-51 Mustang coming in as well to take out the IG-18, not going to be able to do so, even if the PaK-38 gets himself in on the fight and takes out the M22. I'm wondering if we're not going to see, perhaps, yep, there's some Panzerschrecks coming in already for the 17th SS, and that's going to be nice and hunky-dory right there. Won't be too bad. In the meantime, IG-18s continue to pressure the MG in the center part of the map and do take that out. But it doesn't mean that things are getting any easier for the Americans. They still own, any harder for the Americans. They still control 53% of the map, which is going to be kind of nice here. And I frankly kind of think they should have been pressuring a little bit more aggressively with these airborne engineers. These guys are great if you can get them in close enough to actually use the flamethrower. However, if you don't, well, that's kind of hard cheese. Very hard cheese. Interesting, let's slow this down for half a second just to see what people are seeing right now. So the Reverend, he is fairly blind. He knows there's an infantry gun here. He's got some infantry in the middle part of the map, but he doesn't really know what's going on. Prince Ali, only marginally better, I would say. At least he knows where that anti-tank gun position is. As we see the Stroke 3 redeploy over to the German left, we will also note Panzerschrecks coming on out, MG42 kind of trooping on in, and these Panzergrenadiers that came over here to the German left to balance out this particular engagement. Gonna be very difficult for them to actually get in on the fight. Stroke, though, does have the M22 in his sights, and he blows it up, so no Shrek today. But no more M22 either, so a lot of the German deficiency is solved, at least for the time being. Anti-tank gun coming on in. This is still going to be another pop gun, I think, with M3. Setting up? Not quite yet. Alright, so we'll see that hopefully in a second. In the middle part of the map, however, not a lot of rifles really to support these airborne engineers. These guys are getting pushed back, I think, rather severely. But we are seeing more of them coming on in. Nope, these guys are going over to the Allied right, just so that way they can support this new push that they're seeing, as well as fight off this Stroke 3. I was going to call it Stroke 18 for some reason, forgive me. Panzerschrecks are nice and close, and they're supporting some fire into these airborne engineers. Those guys are now dead. And the map itself is falling back into a 52-48, so the Americans losing a little bit here and there. And the Germans just continue to bring in more and more field cannons, I think. Nope, IG-18s. Still pretty early for field cannons. You do see the infantry support gun over here on the German right is completely gone. MG42 trying to get in the fight. Might be, yep, pins down those guys even as they're trying to cross the middle part of that road. So very lucky there for the Germans. Getting one last burst of fire in. Another P-51 Mustang coming in now. Going to go and bomb that center part of the German position. Might be pretty devastating. Pins down, does get a little bit of damage. Okay, so a little bit less destructive than I was concerned about. But then you know me, guys. I am a little bit more Deutsch aligned than I probably maybe should be in this game. IG-33 is actually the decision coming on in, and this guy's dropping rounds down. Ooh, one shot, one kill takes out the anti-tank gun, so the Stoke 3 is now much safer in the middle part of the map. Of course, there still are airborne rifles and another anti-tank gun here, but I don't think he even knows about that. Uh-oh. Yeah, that's a rather canny position for the M3 out of the Reverend. Fighting dies down for a little bit here as we do see more troops are kind of trooping up to the front. Airborne rifles have been dropped off and are kind of hunkering down. And Dick Winters has hit the field. I don't think I've been able to cast a game yet where Dick Winters actually gets used. So this is really, really kind of fun for me. Now, Dick Winters, for those of you who don't know already, well, that is the eventual commanding officer, or at least for Easy Company, the eponymous Band of Brothers show and book and all of that material that you may have seen in your own kind of World War II knowledge. Dick Winters is definitely an individual that was leading the Easy Company from, what, about late 44 on? Not late 44. Shortly after the invasion. Germans throwing in some more material, though. In the meantime, more infantry, another leader coming on up. He's going to find himself getting slaughtered, I think, pretty darn quickly. These airborne rifles and the airborne engineers. Not going to be a pretty sight there. And now this Opel Blitz munition truck is coming in to resupply. I think that Stoke 3, and that's a good decision right there. That guy's been doing good work. Unfortunately, he does not have any HE ammo left. Bit of a problem there. But we are 1.5 minutes away from Phase B. And the Americans are not charging on in necessarily, but taking some good positions across the center part of this map. IG-18 is going to get another couple of rounds in. Where's he firing? That's the question. He's going after this airborne rifle? Yes, he is. And he is close enough that he's going to really do a number on them. Pins them down with the help of the MG42 in just 2 rounds. And yikes. We're also going to see these airborne engineers coming under fire from the infantry support gun, 33. So the airborne rifles get taken down, the airborne engineers get slaughtered as well, and the middle part of the American position collapses back to a 50-50. Probably the most immediate positive thing about this map right now is that the airborne doesn't care about getting surrounded, right? They're pinned down, they're not surrendering just yet, and it's only though by the kind of good grace. There we go. Never mind. There's a surrender right there. So the good grace that they weren't getting picked off just yet, but now there they go. M2HB is going to be engaging with an MG42, and the MG42 is probably going to get taken on out by these bombs. No pin, though, which means he's got to back off or else pay with his life. Stoke 3 is still getting resupplied slowly, and he's still just barely out of the line of sight for this anti-tank gun. Pretty lucky there, I would say. I get the feeling that the second that the Stoke 3 moves, he's going to get completely and totally blown to pieces. Meanwhile, over here on the Allied right, we see this M2HB is taking a lot of firepower from several different sources here. MG42, Panzergrendier Führers, Panzergrenadiers. The Shreks aren't getting in on the fight, but that's because they have these, Panzer Shreks, not going to be a whole lot of use otherwise. This B-51 Mustang's getting in on it as well, trying to drop rounds on these attacking Panzergrenadiers. Do some good damage, but not enough to force back the attacking Germans. Alrighty. Now we are into Phase B. We've been there for about 30 seconds now. M2HB still kind of taking a lot of firepower here. And really the Americans, if they were going to be something aggressive to get out of this, they need to throw more infantry over here on the right flank. Or perhaps even, maybe even, well, Pack-Hour is just a nice, little adjustment. But try to rupture the center, drive up this main arterial here. Whether you have to hunker around these forests here to the left-hand side, or just even being very gutsy and going straight up the middle, you definitely have an opportunity to do so. But they're not doing that. And indeed, we are going to see this M2HB has been pinned down. I wouldn't be surprised to see this getting picked off soon enough as well. Worth noting in the meantime that both players are playing decently skillfully. This is not... Ooh, and there it is. Okay, M3 or something called the M2HB. Oh, no, it wasn't them. Ooh, okay, so Zook picks off that Stug. It was a bit of a shame because he was doing rather well for the Germans. And this IG-18 is able to go and suppress down these rifles, pin them down in rather good fashion here. Anti-tank gun goes down, as does the M2HB over here in the Allied right. On the Allied left, we are going to see slowly the Americans getting forced back. Airborne was initially up in this area right about here, and now getting pushed back further and further towards that original town position. MG-42 gets taken out by an attacking P-51. It's a little bit disappointing to see that the Germans have not gone for any sort of counterplay in the air, or even putting out some anti-air positions on the ground. I do remember seeing something recently about how the 20mm cannons for the Germans are a little bit too powerful. MG-42 on the German right goes down. I think a consequence of this pack howitzer. But the anti-air was a little bit too powerful from the 20mm. By the same token, I kind of feel like the bombs themselves, if they hit, they're devastating. And I think you'll probably see that a little bit later in this game. There's going to be an artillery position getting hunkered down. A couple of them. One P-51 Mustang will take out two, and with one fell swoop. Germans are dropping some more squads over here on their left, the Allied right. And Dick's getting into the fight here, folks. He's firing off a couple of rounds here with that lovely, lovely M1 Garand. But he's going to get caught under a fair amount of fire himself. Pack Howards are looking and not finding any sort of real combat. Oh no, never mind. He's going to finally hit that 81mm mortar. That guy had just fallen back in the first place, so taking fire now, very, very quickly going to get suppressed again, I would think. And here are two artillery pieces coming on in, as well as a very oddly called Impact 40. Yes, this thing has some HE ammo, but I'm not entirely sure why he called it in so early. As you can see right now, there are some command stewards coming in here, but not gonna really be enough to be worth calling it a Pack 40. Allies, though, do seem to think that their flank is failing over here, throwing up a couple of machine guns to make a nice little web of defensive positions from which they can kind of like stave off this bleeding. And to be fair, they have to do something rather quickly here. They are losing the map by plus or minus 4% here. I'm kind of interested to see. Ooh, Panzerschrecks do go down. MG-42 coming under fire from these engineers, and the engineers are still not close enough to actually bring their flamethrowers online. At least not against the MG-42s. They did that against the Shreks. What else do we have here? Okay, more infantry coming in from the Germans. Finally an anti-air platform. And there we go. So two Feldkanone Aktions. Both these bad boys gonna throw rounds down the Pack 40. Excuse me. Wow, why am I saying that? Pack howitzer. Jeez. IG artillery position gets slammed into by another set of airborne bombs. Cool kill coming out over that from that poor kind of super light vehicle. Not going to be too aggressed on, though, are the Germans. Yes, this M5A1 is really without peer at the moment. There's not a lot of any kind of, really, any anti-tank whatsoever. Finally going to see both a gun coming in as well as a Panzerschreck squad. So that's been kind of nice from the German side. And slowing this down again for a second, let's take a quick look at line of sight. Well, we know that these Feldkanone Aktions are doing the dirty, it looks like, over to the Allied left here. And he knows that they're there. You know, Prince Ali, what has he got? Well, he doesn't see a whole lot now, does he? He knows about this command steward, which is why he brings in both the anti-tank gun and the Shrek squad itself. But he doesn't really know about this entire kind of defensive line from these machine guns. This M2HB is just barely getting line of sight onto his Aufklärers. But they're going to be suppressed fairly quickly here as well. And there's the pin. Ooh, a P4 is being thrown in over here on the German left. That's going to be rather good if he can manage to keep his front armor towards this Stuart. Stuarts are almost like way too good at taking out more heavily armed battle tanks. Well, to be fair, this particular P4 is not the upgunned armored approach, but rather the kind of frontally decent but still underwhelming model of the vehicle. But that's neither here nor there. In the meantime, we will see that Dick Winters gets right back into it again. He's still not really close enough to engage with those Thompsons, which would have given him a lot more firepower. But that seems to be just his bailiwick for the moment. And here's what I'm talking about. P-47 comes in, drops 3 bombs. There goes both Feldkanone positions. I mean, I get the fact that the guy just dropped 2,000 pounds worth of bombs, but it seems a little bit too good to be true sometimes with the airborne bombing runs. Regardless, I can understand people's concerns that the 20mm cannon does a little bit too much work in terms of rate of fire against airplanes to at least stave them off. But all the same, I find it very hard to be sympathetic, is what I guess what I'm trying to say here. In the meantime, I'm going to shift over here to watch this hunter and hunted kind of idea here. This Stuart has no idea what's coming towards him. And indeed... Oh jeez, I don't want to miss this. Shrek comes up. Shrek comes down, and there goes that Stuart. So that's going to clean up a good portion of that kind of runaround that's going on behind the German front lines. And what's more, we are seeing that a lot of his indirect fire is able to suppress and pin down and allow this infantry to really be moving on forwards. One M2HB goes down. There still are 2 more in decent positions. Not perfect, mind you, but decent ones. Although one of them is coming under fire right now by courtesy of this Feldkanone Achsen. And these airborne engineers, which I tried to push across this field a little bit, are getting pinned down, as is Dick Winters. And these airborne rifles are not going to do particularly well either. The question is whether or not this Panzer IV is going to be able to stay safe with the Zook right there. Ooh, luckily enough, he manages to pin them before they get a round off. And very quickly taking them out. So P4 establishing himself very quickly on this map and doing some excellent suppressive work. I would like to see both German squads here start pushing on in a little more aggressively. And compel, if nothing else, the 2 of them to fall back. Now, worth noting in the meantime, that is a very, very good usage of smoke shells to block the line of sight of that P4. Well done there. And Winters is back in the fight. Strapping gentleman, if you can check that out. But these PNES are close enough as well. These guys, well, they have a lot of suppressive firepower. Airborne engineers do go down, and Dick, I don't think will be long for this world either. This poor guy is all alone in green fields, and he's riding now with the sun on his face. He's in Elysium, and he is already dead. Still not much happening over here on the left-hand side. I think a couple of airstrikes, perhaps, but that was literally about it. And Phase C in 7 seconds. Worth noting in the meantime, we're starting to get some heavier light vehicles in here. And dropping off some infantry, but at the same time bringing along the M2HB to kind of keep the Americans a little bit more company. Pioneers coming up as well, but no, wow, cannot talk today, guys, forgive me. Stuart coming on up, and this P4 is here as well, and this could be one of those kind of moments, I think, where the Stuart blows apart a heavier tank super quickly, and it bothers me a little bit. But I will admit that the P4 was not perhaps the most heavily armed and armored vehicle for the Germans. So before Williams comes and attacks me for my German predilection, at least I have a little bit of a I'll doff my hat a little bit there. With Phase C coming in, the Germans have to watch out for heavier armor coming out from the Americans, M10 tank destroyers, and indeed, wow, we're seeing a ton more infantry coming on in. So I don't know if the Americans are really trying to go and just give up on the left-hand side, or if they're going to just finally, like I suggested, begin to rupture the center. Doesn't look like either. In the meantime, Shrek does come in and blows apart the next Stewart as well, so huzzah. And this HMG half-track, well, HMG truck, really, is coming on in. He's aggressive, but he goes down just as quickly, courtesy of that Pack 38. Thunderbolt, yep, Thunderbolt's coming on in, going to take him out this pack as well, though. So bombs coming down, and there goes that brave anti-tank position. Worth noting in the meantime that the Germans have finally brought in a single Focke-Wulf 190. But still enough ground fire from a lot of these HMGs that he's forced to fall back very quickly. Perhaps if he was able to engage aircraft over here, specifically on the left-hand side, in much better position. But you can see right now, taking ground fire from 3-4 sources ain't going to be pretty for him. Mustang, in the meantime, does go after his own target, being that Focke-Wulf. Not sure it's the best idea, though. He's going to take some firepower from this Flak 36. And there's more than one. The Flak Vierling, as well, is able to... Yeah, he's going to suppress the bejesus out of that poor P-51. Giving the Focke-Wulf more than a good opportunity, I would hope. To aggress? No, not going to happen. Both guys are going to get away today. One falling back because of ground fire, and his pursuer meeting the same fate. Another P4 coming on in. You want to see again where he's going. Going to be locking down the German position more than being really kind of aggressive. It's not until he gets to about this position here that he's going to do anything really worthwhile of note. And makes a better call to slide over here to this left side of the German position and basically keep himself away from any sort of easy armor-piercing fire. Now, the anti-tank gun here is still up in the area, but I don't think this P4 is going to get in close enough. No, he's not, so they're just all set there. More bombs coming down in the meantime. Is he coming for... No, apparently he didn't even get a chance to drop his bombs. Okay, so he pulled back even before he even lost his ordnance there, so that's a nice small victory for the Germans, I would suggest. And this Junker, in the meantime, looking for the Pack Howitzer and the support equipment. He's got tons and tons of those bombs there, friends. And he's going to devastate part of it, but he calls it in a little bit too far away. One of the Mustangs goes down. I imagine this Junker might even buy it as well. No, somehow he manages to make it away, despite the fact... Well, praise be to the gunner on that one, in the back of that Junker. He makes it away. He's going to have a couple of holes in his fuselage right there, but nothing too bad at all. Now, we haven't really talked about tickets at all, but you can see, obviously, that the Axis have now been able to double the American position. Losing out for quite a bit of time, but it looks like Prince Ali, mighty is he, has definitely got something going on here now, doesn't he? Panzer IV is finally trooping forwards, and I believe this M3 is trying to get a line on him, but it's not going to go very well. It doesn't have to, though. Glider leaders taking out the P4 with a Zook fire. Now, amusingly enough, two squads of them, in fact, two leaders, were pinned by a single round, but only lost one model apiece. And now we're seeing airborne engineers curving around this German position over here on the right-hand side. Ain't going to be too wonderful now. Now, we can pretty much ignore this left. All the action is happening over here. We are seeing the Germans throw a P4 over here to the left-hand side, so we'll check back on that once he gets a little bit closer to the front. Airborne engineers do find themselves charging in and getting pinned down again by this indirect fire. And that's the thing about the 17th SS-Panzergrendier. In terms of actual vehicles, they were rather undersupplied, very underwhelming. But they had a good amount of artillery, and that's kind of reflected in this game rather sufficiently, I would say. Unfortunately, the problem with that artillery is that it is super fragile, and you can see it gets pinned and suppressed almost without fail. And 2HP is going to find himself face to face with these Pioneers. And the Pioneers might do rather well against it initially, but no, he's going to be targeting the wrong direction here, I think. There we go. Some firepower is going to be levied finally after the Pioneers, but for the moment, things are still rather hunky-dory for the Germans. But bombs coming down from airstrike, going to blow away one of the Panzergrenadiers and leave these Pioneers completely without support. Amusingly enough, though, I think it also did some damage to the M2HB. And we're finally going to see this P4 getting closer and closer to the fight. If he's able to get up here, he's going to have good line of sight onto that machine gun, and the machine gun's not going to do a whole lot against the heavier armor. But there is this M10 in here in the meantime as well, so if he transitions over here to the left flank, he could really do a number on the P4. Pack 40 in the meantime, throwing rounds down range, trying to suppress the M2HB beforehand. And doing a fairly decent job. Being inside the garrison, did give him a fair amount of cover, but he does go down eventually. More infantry thrown over here to the right-hand side, and it's just become a meat grinder over here, really. Which is a little bit unfortunate, because I always enjoy watching more highly fluid battles. Left-hand side, though, is, like I said, a rather calm position. I think, is he trying to take out that supply vehicle? Yes, he is. He's going to blow away that poor Jeep. And that Jeep does not have much in the way of defenses. In fact, he's got absolutely nothing. And because of now his completely barren left flank, the Reverend's going to surrender, giving the victory over to Prince Ali. Great, so Prince Ali actually is going to be Ali Ababwa. And doing a rather decent job there. End score, 1056 to 425. Minor victory for the Germans, but a victory is a victory. And you can see right there, yep, some friendly fire did go down onto the Reverend's troops. In terms of history already, not much to worry about. But kill-wise, machine guns definitely do a lot of work for the Americans, as will those air strikes. Germans, Stroke doing decently well. Panzergrenadier is doing decently well. Focke-Wulf doing decently well. But nothing really, no real standout kind of equipment there. In any case, thank you so much, folks, for coming in to see this particular game. Thank you to Prince Ali for sending me this game. Hopefully it is going to go up on Saturday. My schedule's been a little bit compressed this week, getting back from vacation. But thank you so much for tuning in. If you guys have a game you want me to check out, please email me at conorgaming@gmail.com with the replay. Tell me which player you are. I was able to do this with Prince Ali because of his name on the email, but if you don't have your actual name in there, it'd be kind of nice to know who you are so I can give you a nice good shout out. But thank you so much for tuning in, folks. I'll see you all soon. This is Conor signing off. Take it easy, everybody.